My friends, good day. Today we're going to talk about something that's very well known in aviation, which is the normalization of deviance. It was invented by a researcher named Mrs. Wagner. I hope that's still her name. I think she's still alive. And actually, it was around the time of the Challenger explosion, that NASA rocket that took off. While the organization, NASA as an organization, knew and had been warned that it was going to explode. They put 7 people inside, they lit the fuse, it took off, it exploded, even though it was completely predictable, expected, and warned about. And so it's true that this research got a lot of attention, and NASA started to be given as a typical example of a dysfunctional organization. But we shouldn't only criticize NASA, since this happens in many advanced fields: aviation, which we often discuss here, medicine, and diving, which we'll cover today. So as I was saying, in the Maldives, 5 people went diving in absolutely terrible circumstances. That means, look, we have a water column that's 50 to 60 meters deep, and at the bottom of it, there's the beginning of a cave system made up of 3 chambers, underwater caves, no less. That's already something that, if you think about it, can give you nightmares. When you look at it, if you drop some boat keys, and they're 60 meters deep just to go get them, I'm not talking about a cave, I'm talking about keys on the sand. That's already a technical dive, it's already a difficult dive, which still requires quite a lot of repetition, training, skill, and expertise, and all that. So going to that depth, and then once you're there, going into a cave system, I think that in a way you have to have a death wish. So I was in the Maldives about 2 or 3 years ago. At that time, well, it's raining now. We're kind of in the tropics, but it's warm rain, so it's okay. I was saying that what struck me, and I only went diving once. I left, you see, I took this vest with me. I took the equipment and everything. I only went diving once, despite reserving a whole suitcase for my gear. Why? It's because I saw something, I saw an attitude that seemed reckless to me, that seemed careless in that place, whereas I didn't notice it elsewhere. For example, in Turkey, I went diving several times with clubs certified by the Turkish Diving Federation and all that. Honestly, I went as deep as 45 meters on a ship off the coast of Antalya and everything. And sincerely, I never felt any danger or disorganization or anything like that. But in the Maldives, it's very different. And unfortunately, you can find that in very touristy places. So you might say that Antalya is also very touristy, but they still kept a certain discipline, whereas it seemed to me that it was lost in the Maldives. Let me tell you about it. I arrived to go diving, so the outside temperature is 30 degrees. You know, in the tropics, you can check today where the Maldives are. The temperature when it's cold is 29, and when it's hot, it's 31. It's been like that since the first man walked on Earth. So I put on my wetsuit. You need a wetsuit because while the surface is warm, thermoclines make it suddenly cold below, just like in the ocean. So I put on my suit, weight belt, fins, mask, the whole thing. Okay, then you have to walk. We're in the center of the island. Walk to the end of the pier to reach the diving spot. So I find myself in 30-degree weather, wearing a suit, walking. I don't know the exact distance, maybe 500, 600, 700 meters, but I can tell you, with the equipment, it's a lot. Fortunately, someone took the tanks in a cart and placed them at the end of the pier. So I get to the end of the pier. I'm already sweating under the suit. Okay, then I look for some stairs or something to go down. I tell myself, no, I have to jump into the water from a 3-meter high pier. I've done it a few times, but I don't really enjoy it. Let me explain how it works. You take you're fully equipped, you see, with your gear. You've got the tank on your back. You deflate the buoyancy vest. It's attached to the tank. So you deflate the buoyancy vest completely, really, because if it's still inflated at the moment of impact with the water, it's going to push the tank violently upward. The valve system you see here, the first stage can hit you in the back of the neck, and that's not good. I'm telling you right now. So you empty this completely. Now what you do, wait, I'm going to check something here. Because you have to be very careful. Never breathe from these things without cleaning them. Let me tell you something. There was a guy, asthmatic, salbutamol, you know, those inhalers, asthmatics have them everywhere. They have one in the car, one at home, at the office, all that. So, and sometimes they're mixed with keys, with other things, all that. There was a little big pen cap, the back part of the big cap, that little thing in the back that had come off and ended up getting stuck inside the albuterol inhaler. What he did was he took the inhaler, did this, and inhaled. Poof. So you have the gas plus the effect of inhaling, and the little plastic cap ended up inside his lungs. You really have to be careful before breathing in. I cleaned and emptied it before recording, giving it a quick blast of air. If you don't, you might inhale a spider. You can basically see it moving around on the X-ray. By the way, there was a guy, I think it was in Ethiopia. They found an insect deep in his airways, in his lungs. And actually, he had to go, I think, to Singapore so they could remove them for him. Because there was no way. They didn't have the equipment. Once he got to Singapore, they did the X-ray, and there was nothing. And actually, they realized when they remembered that the insect was in the machine, in the X-ray machine, and that's why it showed up. It appeared in some X-rays. But in any case, you really have to be very careful in life if you don't pay attention to a lot of things. So to dive from a dock, take this as a lesson. No, 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 no. Actually, what you have to do is you have to jump while holding this and holding your mask. You really have to hold them with all your strength and then you jump. Because if you hesitate in the way you hold them, once the water hits, it's going to rip them off you. It's going to rip that off you, the second stage from your mouth. It's going to rip it off. It's going to rip your mask off. And then, well, your buoyancy vest is deflated, like we said. You have a weight belt. You're going to sink like a stone. You're going to sink like a stone. Well, with a bit of training, it's not the end of the world. Because even without a mask, you do this. You pick up your regulator, you put it on, you blow into it. But if you can't blow into it, it's not a big deal. You press a little bit there and clear the water, you breathe. Even without a mask, it's not a big deal. But anyway, once you're in the water, right? Like I was saying, I kept my mask and everything. They say, and the instructor confirms, that diving isn't allowed here, so we'll have to swim. So I start swimming. I probably had to swim another 300 meters before reaching a spot. He said, we dive here. I can tell you, by the time we started diving, it had been more than half an hour, maybe 45 minutes since I left the club. I had a huge oxygen debt. I was out of breath. I won't lie to you. I was out of breath. The heat, the sweat, the walking, the jumping, the swimming. I mean, I just wanted to go diving, I wasn't there for some kind of French Foreign Legion tryout, And I realized, when I saw the club, that sometimes they took people, even without experience, into areas where there are currents. That means there are places where the cool thing about the spot is that you're deep, let's say at 20 meters, and there are these kinds of rocks, gorges, and then you have strong currents. And the current carries you away. There you go, and it's awesome. You let go there, and then the current, it's going to carry you away, you see? You're like a fish that's in a sink, and someone opens the drain, and you just go with it, that's it. And you don't control anything anymore, you're just happy to go. Well, I've seen those conditions. I packed my gear in the suitcase, and I'm not going to use it again. And I'll tell you something, in the Maldives, you see a lot more things. You can even see giant turtles and all that with just a mask and snorkel than what you see while diving. Because when you're diving, honestly, at 20 or 25 meters, that's it. There's almost no more light coming in. It's not clear water over a long distance. It starts to get a bit murky. It's not the Red Sea, actually. In Egypt, the Red Sea is something else, It's really glorious. The colors, all the colors you see, blue, violet, red, it's a symphony of colors. When you go into the Red Sea, all you have to do is put your head under the water. It's impressive. And the deeper you go, the more you see. But that's not true for the Maldives, which are best for surface swimming with their white, fine sand beaches. I would go back there without any problem, but I wouldn't take my diving equipment if I return. Anyway, so what happens when we go deep? Let me tell you, when we go deep, what's the problem? So, when you take this tank here, let me show you a little bit. It holds 200. It holds 200 bar, okay? We filled it to 200 bar at the club. Okay, so 200 bar. If I go diving now in this pool with it, well, it'll last about an hour. Why? Because I'm basically at the surface. It will be delivering me 1 atmosphere. But when you're at 60 meters like those people, you're at 60 meters. What is the atmospheric pressure? It's 7 bars, 7. This one provides air at 7 bars because if it doesn't, you can't breathe. Your lungs are surrounded by water at 7 bars of pressure. If you want to be able to inhale, your lungs have to push that pressure out, so it has to give you 7 bars. It adjusts with a valve system. Automatically, it gives you that. But in terms of volume, what does that mean? Well, in terms of volume, it means it's 7 times more than at the surface. That means each breath will cost 7 times more. So what happens then? Your tank, well, instead of lasting an hour, it'll only last about 8 or 9 minutes. You see, that's why people who dive at those depths, they already have a lot of tanks. And those aren't just tanks they take with them. They have tanks that are set up beforehand. That means here's what we're going to do. First, let's see. On the first day, we have a whole logistical setup. We have 2 ships on the surface. We have 20 or 30 people helping. We set up lines with lead weights, you see. And then we'll have guys who go down to place bottles, attaching them at different levels so they can make decompression stops on the way out. You see, it's a whole process. Then we'll move tanks farther inside. And all that, just to allow a group of 5 people to enter the cave system and come out. So what they did is, there's a system of 3 chambers. There were 6 of them at the start. 1 of them had this extraordinary reflex. And honestly, I'm telling you, your safety is your responsibility. You don't care that everyone does it, even with 1,000 people going. I don't go, sorry. She said she's staying on the boat. We didn't want to go. The 5 of them left. There was an Italian university professor. There was her daughter, who's 20 years old. Yeah, 20 years old. You see, even if my daughter probably dives, she's 8 years old. She doesn't really dive. She grabs the bottle, tosses it in the pool, then catches it and goes down about a meter or so. It's not really diving, but you know what I mean. But that doesn't necessarily make her, at 20 years old, a diver capable of going down 60 meters and entering a cave system. That's it. That's just crazy. So the 5 of them went down, they went in. Well, normally what we have in diving is what we call no decompression limit. That means we try to stay within the limits as much as possible, unless we're doing technical diving. We try to stay long enough to enjoy the place, but not so long that we need decompression stops. Why? For example, say you go down to 40 meters. 40 meters roughly, according to the US Navy tables or others. There are a lot of tables, a lot of standards around the world. But roughly that gives you about 8 minutes at depth, more or less. If you stay 8 minutes at 40 meters, technically, you can ascend without needing a decompression stop. You can always do it just to be safe, but you don't need to. Decompression stops are required after that time. What does that mean? When a decompression stop becomes mandatory, it's like there's a lid above you. It's like you're being locked in because the surface is no longer accessible. We avoid decompression stops because they create a physiological barrier between you and the surface. If you come up without respecting them, you could die, like what happened with that rescuer who left. He stayed at depth, then he came up. Apparently, later on, we realized that he wasn't specialized in deep diving. When he came out, he felt unwell and was taken to the hospital where he died. In the Maldives, recompression chambers are available everywhere, as they're usually used to save people. They put the person in a kind of big metal tube. They lock the person inside and increase the pressure to redissolve the nitrogen bubbles in their body. And what we do next is gently lower the pressure to let the nitrogen escape gradually. So we simulate the decompression stops that the person missed, but sometimes it's already too late. When you have bubbles in the brain, your blood starts to emulsify with the gases inside. And that's it, it's over. Often you can't save the person anymore. So as I was saying, we try to avoid the stops because that's exactly what creates a barrier, you see, between you and the surface. In their case, there were 2 barriers. There was the decompression stop barrier and the barrier of being in a cave. And let me tell you something, at 50 meters, the time will go down to around 4 minutes, you see. At 60 meters, that time almost doesn't exist. At 60 meters, roughly, you have a minute or 2. After a minute or 2, decompression stops are needed, and they increase quickly. The faster you dive, the shorter your dive time. You could potentially stay about 20 minutes at the bottom at 60 meters, though I don't know the exact number. Well, to get out, there will probably be several hours of decompression at different levels that you need, but it doesn't seem like they had the equipment or the logistics in place. Then they go into the caves. There are several problems in the caves. The light doesn't reach. Even in the Maldives, don't assume the water is clear down to 60 meters. You'll say you've only dived once in one place. But in general, in the Maldives, the water is not crystal clear for dozens and dozens of meters. At 60 meters, no light reaches you anymore. On top of that, you go into caves. So that's one more reason there'll be even less light. So you need dive lights, etc. You need portable light. Now, the problem is that generally those who do this kind of diving use a guideline. That means they take a rope to know where the exit is. Except it seems that he didn't use such a system. They thought, well, it's easy. The entrance is there. We swim. At the bottom, there's another entrance. We go under. We get out. I imagine that's what must have gone through their minds. The problem is that it only takes one of them to kick with a fin. A little kick with a fin there. It comes out. It stirs up sediment. You turn around. You don't really know where the entrance is anymore. You don't really know where to go anymore because you're in a cloud. You're in a cloud of sediment. You reach out, barely able to see your hand. Beyond that, nothing is visible. It's over. You can still find your way with a compass and all that, but well, good luck, you know. We don't necessarily have a compass with us. Okay, that's it. You don't necessarily have a compass with you. Some people take one. I'm not very convinced. Doing IFR deep inside a cave, I'm not very convinced about that. So as I was saying, the guys find themselves in a situation of instrument failure. That means they're inside the cave. And I dove once in a cave, and it's an underwater cave. It's not a very deep cave. It was, I don't know, 5 or 6 meters. And there was a chamber. How can I put it? I was glad to get out. I was glad to get out because you're in a tube. You're in a tube. You're slowly kicking with your fins. Rocks are above you. If you're not careful, you hear your tank scraping them. The tube is full. You can't get out if you ever have a problem. If you ever inhale and the air doesn't come, there's nothing you can do. You can't get out. It's over. There's no exit. There's no exit. And you panic. And honestly, franchement, honestly, I have to tell you, I'm not very brave about these things. Okay, the dentist and underwater caves, that's really not my thing. I have my limits. So I get to the end of the cave. We get out just like that. Out of the water. We look. There's a room inside. It's a room. And I could hear cold water, icy water flowing from the mountain, from inside the mountain and coming into that cave. There was air. An air bubble likely trapped for 1,000,000 years was there. I was there. The instructor told me you can breathe. Because I was afraid to breathe, I went out and I kept it in the air. I was like that, breathing from my nerve because I trust him. He told me, don't worry, you can breathe. So I started to look around. I could hear the sound of the water. You know, it's pretty scary. You're in the bowels of the earth. You feel like you're becoming a fetus again, like going back into your mother's womb. It's pretty scary. Beyond that atavistic side of it, it's pretty scary. And so, yeah, I stayed for like 10 or 15 seconds. I thought, let's leave now. That's enough. I understood, and that's good. But I have a hard time imagining people in a cave system. At 50, 60 meters. And the thing is, you know, I told you about air consumption. Mind you, in a pool like this, your air can last an hour. You know why? Like I said, everyone gets the pressure, but there's more to it. It's because you relaxed. Yeah, you're in a pool, blue water, you're calm, you close your eyes, you let yourself float like that. Your heart slows down. You breathe well, calmly. It's good. It's great, but when you're stressed, when you're cold, for example, you know, cold water, stress, currents, all that, it tends to increase your breathing. It increases your breathing, and it increases. You'll burn through your air very quickly. And I assure you that at 40 meters, I'm not talking about 60 at 40 meters. You take 3 or 4 deep breaths, really good ones. You look at the gauge, you see it drop. So at 60, I can't even imagine what must have happened. So we're probably in a situation, people went into this cave and then something happened. Well, they all got lost together. Or maybe another problem, someone in trouble, one of them has an issue. But imagine, for example, someone panicking. Okay, someone panics. He drops his mask, throws his stuff, and starts freaking out. That can happen. Honestly, that can happen. I was in a cave, and I can tell you, I didn't do it. Of course, I didn't do it. I wasn't about to do it, but I would understand someone who did. It's really an intense level of stress. There are people, they handle it differently. They love it. But I assure you, the level of pressure that's on you, you have to trust the system, right? Really, if there's ever a situation where you have to trust the plan, it's this one. So when you're there underwater, you trust the system. So they were breathing, telling themselves that it would end someday, right? So the panic like I said, the cloud of sediment, the kick from a fin on your body. That's why we all train for this in diving. Indeed, if someone, it's happened to me, you know, my own daughter Pam, she kicked me with her fins, her little pink fins, and with one kick, my mask came off. It's not the end of the world. We were in a pool, so if someone pulls off your mask, you can still breathe, but be careful. That's what we did. I trained myself to do that at 20 meters, it's still okay, but at 60 meters in a cave, if someone pulls off your mask, I don't know. There are people who can get out of situations like that. But it must exist. I mean, so what happened is that this group finds themselves in a disaster. They find themselves in a catastrophic situation. They have a few minutes, the air is running low, there's a problem, the sediment got stirred up, someone panicked, whatever, someone did something, and now they want to get out. They can't get out. What happened is that on the ship at the surface, they're waiting for them. Well, there's nobody. Are we going to find when the Finns who arrived on site, you know, specialized divers who use trimix, rebreathers and all that, they're very, very technical, highly specialized divers. To go to those depths, which also require, as I said, good logistics on the surface too, they started to find them, to locate them in the various chambers. The escort, the guy who was supposed to guide them, he was found in the first chamber. That means he was about to get out. I think that in a way he was just about to find the exit, you know. But well, that's it. It ended before that. It seems that they were out of air. That means when we found them, when we looked at the tanks, when we looked at the gauges, the needle was at 0. You see, so it's still terrible. It shows you that for many of them, we don't have the individual details. But for that whole group, you know, what we call a diving group, a team, well, what happened is that people probably stayed going around in circles inside that cave system, stirring up sediment, watching the air run out, without finding a way out. And then, well, every time someone runs out of air, that's it. Usually we have 2. We can help each other. No, we can help each other. You have 2, the yellow one there. I won't use it because I won't clean it. So you have the yellow one usually. It actually has a longer hose. You pass it to your buddy. That being said, honestly, when you're in a cave system at 60 meters and there's no more air, well, I think that's when you know who your real friend is. That's when you find out who will give you theirs. But anyway, even if he gave you the thing at those depths with 2 people breathing from the tank, no. It'll save you 45 seconds each, that's all. There you go, my friends. Anyway, like I told you, no cowboy attitude with these things, whether it's diving, aviation, or anything else. Life, even driving a car, skiing, all that, you know, look. Schumacher, you know, world famous racing driver, Formula One, all that. He got hurt skiing, you see? I mean, always watch out for your safety. Never normalize deviance. Even, you know, I'll tell you something. The problem with deviance is that when you start messing around, doing stupid things and repeating them, things go fine. It's serious because it feels like it's normal. It feels like we've managed to push the limits of what's possible. Let me give you an example. I had a friend who was drunk and drove really fast. He made it home. That's it. Nothing happened. There was no accident. No police officer stopped him. He didn't lose his license. That doesn't mean what he did was right. That doesn't mean what he did was normal. We validate it not because it worked once. It's because it works and it works and it works and it works. When you have a 777 that takes off from New York, lands in Paris, then goes to Calcutta, then goes to Mauritius, South Africa, and it does that for 30 years without ever having a problem, that's repetitive. Since there's a process and organization behind it, not every flight is improvised or pushing boundaries. It's not an adventure. A flight isn't an adventure, you know, but when you start to step out of that zone and just do whatever you want, well, that's it. It works. Sometimes life forgives, you know, sometimes the equipment forgives, nature forgives, providence. Once, twice, 3 times, then one day, tragedy. That's it. Thank you, my friends, for watching this video, which is, let's be clear, a special episode about the event, but it's not a special episode about the substance. About the substance, today we talked about safety, and exactly the same codes, the same philosophy of aviation safety applies pretty much everywhere in life, including when you use a ladder and climb up to paint a wall. Thank you for watching this far, and I'll see you in the next video.